Um, okay, so we're gonna go live. We're gonna go live. There's a lot. I don't even know where to begin. Like, I don't even know where to start about placing these words of wisdom that I have been through into 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 words, if that makes sense. Like, it's a lot of things that are being decapitated, a lot of things that are decomposing around. I'm seeing like watermelons rotting, like things rotting away. So it's kind of like a decomposing to start for. And I see a freaking sign that says Hawaii. So something could, like, Hawaii could be important to somebody. Hawaii, you could be going to Hawaii. You could be moving to Hawaii. Something about Hawaii. I don't know. I'm also seeing light blue as well. So baby blue. Somebody could be having a baby. Somebody could be like blue eyes. It could be the color of your eyes. I'm also hearing that song blue is your color of your eyes as well, but there's a lot of things shifting. There's a lot of things that are decomposing around you. There's a lot of things that are withering away, if that makes sense. It's kind of like the vine on the trees getting cut off because it's no longer producing the fruit that needs to be produced in God's eyes, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I don't even know if that makes sense. But it's like whatever this vine that is created from this tree is not producing what God wants produced, so it's going to be withering away. It's going to be cut free. Does that make sense? It's not a part of God's purpose. It's not a part of God's plan. And I'm hearing Isaiah 2:10. So we're just going to break out the Bible right here, and I'm going to read Isaiah 2:10. So just give me a second to pull that up. 2:10. And I don't... Hold on. Isaiah 2:10. It took me right to Isaiah. So Isaiah 2:10 says, crawl into caves and rocks, hide in the dust from the terror of the Lord and the glory of his majesty. Human pride will be brought down, and the human arrogance will be humbled. Only the Lord will be exalted on that day of judgment. So the reason why I'm seeing decomposing, the reason why I'm seeing things like rotting away is because we are in a day of judgment. A part of humanity has been judged. If you haven't watched Knock on the Cabin yet, watch that, because it's like the four horsemen are here. Part of humanity has already been judged. Now it's time to take it to the next level, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like you got to cut the vine. What the tree is producing, God does not like, if that makes sense. So God is like cutting the vine free from the tree. Does that make sense? So that way that part of that energy can die away, so new energy can come in. And I look down, and it's Isaiah 5, verse 8. It says, I will make a wild place where the vines are not pruned and the ground is not hoed, a place overgrown with briars and thorns. I will command the clouds to drop no rain on it. The nation of Israel is a vineyard of the Lord of heaven's armies. The people of Judah are his pleasant garden. He's expecting a crop of justice, but instead he found oppression. He's expected to find righteousness, but instead he hears cries of violence. So God is looking down on what he has made. He's looking down on this earth. He's trying to understand what it is that humans are partaking in, if that makes sense. He's trying to understand the programming of humans, and he doesn't like what he sees, so he is cutting the vine. Like, he's cutting the umbilical cord. Like, I feel like God is setting himself free from earth, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? But as he's setting himself free, he is placing judgment to rebirth the earth, to rebuild what is his. Even if he has to demolish it all to the ground and have it nothing but a wasteland here, this is still God's land. This is still God's future. This is still what God intended us to have. So even if God has to make it a wasteland and he has to demolish everything here, because I look down and it says, but in that day, a promise of restoration, but in that day, the branch of the Lord, and the sun just got brighter. So he is restoring the earth, but it depends on what humans want to grow on that vine. Does that make sense? It depends. I look over and I said, all the hero soldiers, judges, and prophets, fortune tellers and elders, army officers and high officials, advisors, skilled craftsmen, and astrology. I will make boys their leaders and toddlers their rulers. People will oppress each other, man against man, neighbor against neighbor. Young people will insult their elders, and vulgar people will sneer at the honorable. In those days, a man will say this to his brother, since you have a goat, you be our leader. Take charge of this heap of ruins. But he will reply, no, I can't help. I don't have any extra food or clothes. Don't put me in charge, for Jerusalem will stumble and Judah will fall. So yes, earth is being judged, and a lot of things are going to be having like kind of like a wasteland. Like everything, it has to dry up to be restored. Does that make sense? The roots have to be pulled out to make new roots, to see how deep the roots are. Does that make sense? You have to pull on the roots to see how deep the roots are. Does that make sense? So, but I have heard the Lord of heaven's armies swear our solemn oath. Many houses will stand deserted, even beautiful mansions will be empty. 10 acres of vineyard will not produce even 6 gallons of wine. 10 baskets of seeds will yield only the basket of grain. With sorrow for those who get up early in the morning looking for a drink of alcohol and spend long evenings drinking wine to make themselves flaming drunk. They furnish wine and lovely music at their grand parties, lyre and harp, tambourine and flute, but they never think about the Lord or notice what he is doing. So my people will go into exile far away because they do not know me. Those who are not great and honored will starve, and the common people will die of thirst. The grave is licking its lips in anticipation, opening its mouth wide. The great and the lowly and all the drunken mob will be swallowed up. Humanity will be destroyed and people brought down. Even the arrogant will lower their eyes in humiliation. But the Lord of heaven's armies will be exhausted by his justice. The holiness of God will be displayed in his righteousness. In that day, lambs will find good pastures, and fattened sheep and young goats will feed among the ruins. With sorrow for those who drag their sins behind them with ropes made of lies, who drag wickedness behind them like a cart. They even mock God and say, hurry up and do something. We want to see what you can do. So God is, let the Holy One of Israel carry out his plan, for we want to know what it is. So God is about to execute the earth. Like the earth is being executed right now. God is bringing his flaming sword of fire, and he is going to execute a lot of things around you. Allow it to be executed. Allow it to decompose. Allow it to be torn away from you. Does that make sense? Allow yourself to walk away from the vines that are no longer producing the fruit that God wants you to produce. If that makes sense. It's 855 as I said that. So, a call to trust the Lord. I look down and it says, a call to trust the Lord. You have to trust that God is cutting off vines that are no longer producing what he wants you to produce from that vine. 911, 911, emergency call. Like this, it's time to stand up. God's army is standing up. It's an emergency portal, I see a worker standing there. So it's kind of like it's time to get to work. If that makes sense. It's time to get to work. We've got to quit backlashing. And to get to work, you have to cut away the old fruit that is lying there rotting and not allowing you to move forward. So allow God, 944 as I say that, allow God to remove the fruit that is rotting your soul away. Whatever it is that you're hanging on to that is no longer a part of the community within inside of you, if that makes sense, that is that is tearing you down, that is causing a disturbance. Like this fruit, this vine, vine of fruit that is coming off of you is causing a disturbance. It's causing a black hole. We need to remove the black hole and start something fresh, if that makes sense. Huddle together, you nations, and be terrified. Listen, all you distant lands, prepare for battle. You will be crushed. Yes, prepare for battle, but you will be crushed. Call your councils of war, but they will be worthless. Develop your strategies, and they will not succeed. For God is with us. Call to trust the Lord. So right now, yes, you may be going through a lot of devastating things. You may be losing everything around you. But this is your call to stand up and get to work and trust the Lord and trust God's work. Does that make sense? Trust that you were sent here to do God's work. All right. With that being said, I'm going to leave it there, y'all, because I have to go DoorDash. But peace.